Welcome back to another story on Infidelity Tales Lab. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1, New Beginnings. Benjamin Hahn adjusted his tie in the hallway mirror, the familiar weight of discipline from 12 years in Army Special Forces still evident in his precise movements. At 34, he carried himself with quiet confidence, broad shoulders, steel gray eyes that missed nothing, and hands that remained steady under pressure. The consulting firm he'd built after leaving the military was thriving, but his greatest victory was the woman humming softly in their kitchen. Hannah Hahn moved gracefully around their suburban home, her auburn hair catching the morning light. At 29, she possessed a gentle strength that had drawn Benjamin from their first meeting 18 months ago. She'd been working as a trauma counselor then, helping others heal from wounds she understood all too well. "You're thinking too hard again," Hannah said, appearing beside him with his coffee. Her green eyes sparkled with a warmth that made their house a home. "Just grateful," Benjamin replied, kissing her forehead. "2 months married, and I still can't believe you said yes." Hannah's smile flickered slightly. Benjamin had learned to read these micro-expressions, remnants of trauma that even love couldn't completely erase. Her first marriage had left scars deeper than the faint one on her left temple, barely visible beneath carefully applied makeup. "I need to tell you something," she said quietly. "Clayton's been calling my office. My assistant says he hangs up when she answers, but I know it's him." Benjamin's jaw tightened. Clayton Daly, the shadow from Hannah's past that refused to stay buried. Even their wedding day hadn't been free from his interference. A bouquet of wilted roses left on Hannah's car windshield with a note. "Till death do us part meant forever, Hannah." "How long?" Benjamin asked. 3 weeks. "I didn't want to worry you with the Peterson contract." "Hannah." Benjamin's voice carried the authority that had once commanded soldiers. "Nothing matters more than your safety." "Nothing." She nodded, tears threatening. "I just want him to disappear." Benjamin pulled her close, his mind already calculating. Clayton Daly wasn't just an ex-husband. He was a predator who'd spent 5 years systematically destroying Hannah's confidence, isolating her from friends and family. The divorce had been finalized 3 years ago, but men like Clayton never truly let go. "He will," Benjamin promised, his tone carrying weight Hannah didn't fully understand. "I guarantee it." Chapter 2. The Hunter Emerges. 3 days later, Benjamin sat in his office reviewing Clayton Daly's file. What he discovered painted a disturbing picture. Clayton, 36, worked as a pharmaceutical sales rep, a job that required charm and manipulation, skills he'd perfected during their marriage. Since the divorce, he'd been arrested twice for harassment of other women, charges mysteriously dropped both times. Anthony Estes, Benjamin's business partner and former Army Ranger, knocked and entered. "Got your information on Daly," he said, dropping a folder on the desk. "This guy's a real piece of work. 3 restraining orders from different women, all expired. He's smart about staying just within legal boundaries." "Until now," Benjamin said, studying surveillance photos. Clayton was smaller than expected. 5'8", lean build, receding brown hair, and cold blue eyes that seemed to calculate every angle. "He's escalating." That evening, Hannah worked late at the counseling center. Benjamin used the time to drive past Clayton's apartment complex. The building was run down, most units rented month to month. Perfect for someone who likes staying off the radar. Benjamin's phone buzzed. Hannah's text, "Working late again. Don't wait up. Love you." Something felt wrong. Hannah always called when working late, never texted. Benjamin dialed her office number. No answer. He tried her cell, straight to voicemail. 15 minutes later, Benjamin stood in the empty counseling center parking lot. Hannah's Honda Civic, the only car remaining. Security footage showed Hannah leaving at 6 p.m., but her car sat here undisturbed. Benjamin's phone rang. Clayton's voice was smooth, practiced. "She's safe for now." Amazing how predictable patterns become, isn't it? Coffee shop every Tuesday, grocery store every Thursday. "You really should pay better attention to your wife's schedule, Benjamin." "Where is she?" "Somewhere we can talk privately. About boundaries. About respect. about how some bonds can't be broken by pieces of paper. Clayton's voice hardened. Meet me at Riverside Park, East parking lot. 1 hour. Come alone, or Hannah learns what real fear feels like. The line went dead. Benjamin stared at the phone, then made a different call. Miguel? It's Benjamin. I need a favor. Remember what you owe me from Kandahar? Time to collect. Chapter 3. The Breaking Point. The Riverside Park meeting never happened. 20 minutes before the scheduled time, Benjamin received another call from Hannah's phone. This time, her terrified voice. Ben, please help me. He's. The call cut to static, then Clayton's laughter. Change of plans, soldier boy. I've decided to visit your home instead. Cozy little place. Nice neighborhood. Hannah's been telling me all about your perfect little life. Benjamin was already in his truck, pushing speed limits through residential streets. If you hurt her, you'll what? File a police report? Sue me. Clayton's voice dripped with contempt. I know about men like you, Benjamin. All discipline and rules. Well, here's a rule for you. Some problems can't be solved with legal papers and stern talking. The line went dead. Benjamin's hands gripped the steering wheel as he accelerated. 20 minutes out from home. Too long. He called 911, reporting a break-in in progress, then speed dialed the number he'd memorized but never thought he'd use. Miguel King answered on the first ring. Deployment time? Miguel's gravelly voice asked. Immediate extraction needed. Home address. High-value asset in danger. Roger. ETA, 15 minutes. Benjamin pulled into his driveway to find the front door hanging open, splinters around the lock. His blood ran cold as Hannah's muffled sobs echoed from upstairs. He drew the Glock from his glove compartment. Legally owned, rarely carried, always maintained. Clayton, Benjamin called, moving through his own home like hostile territory. Let's finish this. Up here. Clayton's voice came from the bedroom. Just you and me and Hannah. Like it should have been 3 years ago. Benjamin found them in the walk-in closet. Hannah was curled in the corner, cell phone still in her shaking hand, tears streaming down her face. Clayton stood over her, a kitchen knife in his grip. Look at this, Clayton sneered. The big tough soldier, arriving just in time to watch his wife realize she picked the wrong protector. Benjamin's training kicked in. Assess threats. Calculate angles. Never let emotion override tactics. Hannah, close your eyes. Count to 30. What are you? Clayton began. Benjamin's movement was precise, economical. The knife clattered across hardwood as Clayton screamed, his wrist bent at an unnatural angle. In seconds, Clayton was face down, Benjamin's knee pressed against his spine. Stay on the line. Don't hang up, Benjamin told Hannah, who was still on the phone with 911. Then he made one other call. Miguel, package is secure. Cleanup needed. Roger. 5 minutes out. Clayton whimpered beneath him. You can't. This is assault. I'll press charges. Benjamin leaned close, his voice barely a whisper. You have no idea who you're dealing with. When the police arrived 30 minutes later, they found Clayton huddled in the corner of the living room, rocking back and forth, his broken wrist cradled against his chest. He kept whispering one name over and over. Benjamin. Benjamin. Officer Franklin Howard approached Benjamin in the kitchen, where he sat with Hannah, both appearing to give statements. Sir, we need to ask, who did you send? The perpetrator keeps whispering your name, but claims he never saw anyone else. Benjamin met the officer's eyes steadily. I don't know what he's talking about. I arrived, found him breaking in, defended my wife. Sometimes trauma makes people imagine things. Later, when the police had gone and Hannah was finally asleep, she asked the question Benjamin had been dreading. Who did you call, Ben? After you told me to stay on the line? Benjamin studied his wife's face, the woman he'd sworn to protect, to love, to shield from the darkness he'd once inhabited. Some truths were too dangerous to share. Just back up, he said quietly. Sometimes you need backup. Hannah nodded, accepting the answer she needed to hear. But in her eyes, Benjamin saw she understood more than she was saying. And maybe, just maybe, that was exactly what he needed her to know. Chapter 4. Unraveling Threads. The next morning brought a parade of officials. Detective Clarence Gregory, a weathered man in his 50s, sat across from Benjamin at their kitchen table, while Hannah gave her statement to a female officer in the living room. "Curious thing," Gregory said, flipping through his notepad. "Clayton Daly was found with a dislocated wrist, 3 cracked ribs, and what our medical examiner described as targeted nerve damage. Claims he never saw who attacked him. Says voices came from everywhere and nowhere." Benjamin sipped his coffee, expression neutral. "Trauma can affect memory." "Indeed it can." Gregory's eyes were sharp, especially when that trauma involved professional-grade pressure point manipulation. "You serve in the military, Mr. Hahn." "Army Special Forces. Discharged honorably 3 years ago." "Combat experience?" "2 tours in Afghanistan." "What?" Gregory closed his notepad. "Just trying to understand the timeline." "You called 911 at 8:47 p.m., arrived home approximately 8:52 p.m. according to neighbors. We arrived at 9:20 p.m. That's a 28-minute window." "Felt like hours," Benjamin said truthfully. "I'm sure it did." Gregory stood. "Daly's been charged with breaking and entering, criminal trespass, and violation of the expired restraining order. He'll likely make bail by tomorrow." Hannah appeared in the doorway, her face pale. "Tomorrow?" "I'm afraid so, ma'am. Unless we find evidence of intent to commit bodily harm, it's mostly property crimes." After the police left, Benjamin found Hannah standing in their bedroom, staring at the closet where she'd hidden. "I can't do this anymore, Ben. 3 years of looking over my shoulder, and now he's in our home." Benjamin wrapped his arms around her from behind. "He won't bother us again." "How can you be so sure?" "Because Miguel King was the best in the business," Benjamin thought. "Because sometimes the system failed, and when it did, you relied on the bonds forged in darker places. Because Clayton Daly had just learned there were worse things than prison." "Trust me," Benjamin said instead. That afternoon, Miguel called. "Package delivered as requested. Client received comprehensive consultation on local wildlife patterns, specifically regarding the migratory habits of individuals who overstay their welcome." Benjamin smiled grimly. Miguel's euphemisms were legendary. And his response? "Immediate relocation seems likely. Permanent address change anticipated within 72 hours. Appreciated. Always, brother." Kandahar, debt officially settled. Benjamin hung up as Anthony arrived with takeout dinner and moral support. The 3 of them ate in the living room, the conversation carefully avoiding the elephant in the room until Hannah excused herself for a bath. "So," Anthony said quietly, "want to tell me what really happened?" Benjamin met his friend's eyes. They'd served together, bled together, trusted each other with their lives in places where the Geneva Convention was just a suggestion. "Clayton broke in. I stopped him. Everything else is speculation." Anthony nodded slowly. "Good to hear. Would hate to think someone had to call in old favors from less conventional sources. Would be quite a coincidence if they had. Terrible shame about Daly's sudden desire to relocate to another state, though. Heard through the grapevine he's got family in Oregon. Logging country. Dangerous work. Lots of accidents." Benjamin's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Message received loud and clear. "Leaving tonight. Hannah won't see me again. This is over." Benjamin deleted the message and showed his phone to Anthony, the screen now blank. "Sometimes problems solve themselves," Benjamin said. "Sometimes they do," Anthony agreed, raising his beer in a mock toast. To happy coincidences. But even as they clinked bottles, Benjamin knew this was far from over. Men like Clayton didn't surrender so easily. They regrouped, planned, waited for the perfect moment to strike back. And when they did, Benjamin would be ready. Chapter 5, The Calm Before. 2 weeks passed without incident. Clayton Daly had indeed left town. His apartment was vacant, his job terminated for abandonment. Hannah began sleeping through the night again, her smile returning gradually like sunlight after a storm. But Benjamin remained alert. He varied their routines, checked security systems twice daily, and maintained contact with Miguel through encrypted channels. Men like Clayton were predictable in their unpredictability. They always came back. "You're doing it again," Hannah said one evening, finding Benjamin checking the window locks for the 3rd time. "Doing what?" being hypervigilant. The counselor in me recognizes the signs. She touched his arm gently. Ben, he's gone. You saved us. Benjamin nodded, but his instinct screamed otherwise. 24 hours later, they proved correct. Hannah's sister, Jackie Cole, called from Portland. Ben? Hannah left me a voicemail this morning saying she was driving up to see me, but she never arrived. Her phone goes straight to voicemail. Benjamin's blood turned to ice. Hannah had left for work that morning, as usual. Her calendar showed no Portland trip. What exactly did the voicemail say? That she missed me and wanted to surprise me with a visit. But Ben, it didn't sound right. Hannah never makes impulsive road trips. Benjamin was already moving, checking Hannah's desk for any sign of her plans. Nothing. He called her office. She'd never arrived. Her car wasn't in the counseling center parking lot. His phone buzzed with a text from Hannah's number. Don't call the police. Don't call your friends. Come alone to the old Riverside warehouse on Mill Street. You know the one. Benjamin stared at the message, mind racing. The Riverside warehouse had been abandoned for 5 years, the perfect location for someone who needed privacy. Clayton had returned, but this time he'd planned better. Benjamin called Anthony. He has Hannah. I'm on my way. No, he'll be watching for backup. Ben, don't do this alone. I'm not. Benjamin hung up and dialed Miguel. Second deployment needed. Same asset, new location. Coordinates, Mill Street Warehouse District. Industrial area, minimal civilian presence. Rules of engagement. Benjamin thought about Hannah's terrified voice on the phone, about Clayton's hands on his wife, about 3 years of psychological torture that should have ended with the divorce papers. No restrictions, Benjamin said quietly. Full package authorization. Roger. Moving to position. Benjamin holstered his Glock and grabbed the tactical gear he'd sworn he'd never need again. Night vision, tactical knife, zip ties, and the small device Miguel had given him months ago for emergencies only. As he drove toward the warehouse district, Benjamin's training reasserted itself. This wasn't suburban consultation work anymore. This was war, and Clayton Daly had just made the fatal mistake of targeting a soldier's wife. The warehouse loomed ahead, dark windows like dead eyes. Benjamin parked 2 blocks away and approached on foot, using shadows and industrial debris for cover. Through a gap in the loading dock, he could see light from a battery-powered lantern. Hannah sat zip-tied to a metal chair, duct tape across her mouth, terror in her eyes. Clayton paced behind her, a gun in his hand, not the kitchen knife this time. I know you're out there, Benjamin. Clayton called. Come on in. Let's have that conversation we started. Benjamin activated the small device Miguel had given him, then stepped into the light. Let her go, Clayton. Clayton smiled, but his eyes were wild, desperate. You really don't understand, do you? Hannah belongs to me. 5 years of marriage creates bonds that some paper can't break. The only bond here is the restraining order you violated. Restraining orders. Clayton laughed bitterly. You think legal papers scare me? I've been planning this for months. Every detail, every contingency. He pressed the gun against Hannah's temple. Even you. Hannah's muffled scream cut through Benjamin like a blade. Here's what's going to happen, Clayton continued. You're going to sit down, put your hands behind your back, and I'm going to explain to both of you how this marriage is going to end. The way it should have ended 3 years ago. Benjamin raised his hands, moving slowly toward the chair Clayton indicated. You're right. I don't understand. Help me understand. Clayton's eyes gleamed with narcissistic satisfaction. Hannah was perfect when I found her. Innocent. Trusting. I spent 5 years molding her into exactly what she was supposed to be mine. Then she got ideas about independence, about leaving. That was never supposed to happen. So you let her go. I let her think she was free. Clayton's voice grew cold. But I was always watching. Always waiting. Then you came along with your hero complex, thinking you could save her. Benjamin was almost within range now. Maybe I was wrong. You were. Clayton's finger tightened on the trigger. And now you're both going to pay for that mistake. The lights went out. In the darkness that followed, Clayton learned the difference between a predator and a hunter. Chapter 6. Hunting Season. The darkness was absolute, but Benjamin had trained for this. Night vision wasn't about seeing. It was about hearing feeling, knowing your environment better than your enemy. Clayton's panicked breathing echoed off concrete walls. What? What happened to the lights? Benjamin moved silently, years of special forces training, guiding each step. The small device Miguel had given him wasn't just a signal. It was a complete electrical grid override, designed to cut power to entire city blocks. "Hannah," Benjamin whispered, his voice barely audible but close enough for her to hear. "Close your eyes. Count to 60. A gunshot shattered the silence. Muzzle flash revealing Clayton's position 15 feet away, firing wildly into empty space. Benjamin was already moving, circling, using the brief illumination to map the warehouse interior. "Where are you?" Clayton screamed, his voice cracking with hysteria. "Come out." Benjamin's tactical knife found the zip ties binding Hannah to the chair. She was free in seconds, his hands guiding her toward the loading dock. "Run," he whispered. "Don't look back." More gunshots, erratic now. Clayton was burning through his ammunition, fear making him careless. Benjamin counted 6 shots. Assuming a standard magazine, Clayton had maybe 2 rounds left. "You can't hide forever." Clayton's voice was moving, trying to track them. "I'll find you both. I'll make you watch while I—" Benjamin emerged from the darkness like a ghost. The tackle drove Clayton to the concrete floor, guns skittering away into the shadows. In the brief struggle that followed, Clayton learned what professional violence looked like. When emergency lighting kicked in 3 minutes later, Clayton lay unconscious, zip-tied to the same chair he'd bound Hannah to. Benjamin sat calmly beside him, checking his watch. "Right on time," he murmured as Miguel materialized from the warehouse shadows, dressed in tactical black. Miguel surveyed the scene with professional appreciation. "Clean work. Client secured. Threat neutralized. Standard extraction. Not this time." Benjamin's voice carried cold finality. "Clayton here has been operating under some misconceptions about consequences." Clayton stirred, consciousness returning with painful clarity. His eyes widened as he took in his situation, bound, helpless, at the mercy of men who lived by different rules. "This is kidnapping," he croaked. "Assault. You can't." "Actually," Miguel interrupted conversationally, "you'd be surprised what we can do. Legally speaking, you abducted a woman, threatened murder, discharged a weapon in commission of a felony. Self-defense covers a lot of ground." Benjamin leaned forward, his voice barely above a whisper. "Clayton, I want you to listen very carefully. You spent 3 years terrorizing my wife. Today, that ends. You can't kill me. Too many people know I'm here. Who said anything about killing?" Benjamin's smile was winter cold. "Death will be mercy." Miguel produced a tablet, showing Clayton a series of photographs. Facial recognition software is fascinating these days. Amazing what databases you can access with a right clearance. Clayton's face went white as he recognized the images. Every woman he'd ever stalked, harassed, or threatened. Every restraining order, every dropped charge, every victim he'd thought was forgotten. 23 women over 12 years. Miguel continued clinically. Pattern recognition suggests escalation toward physical violence. Amazing how much evidence surfaces when people start looking. "What do you want?" Clayton's voice cracked. Benjamin stood, towering over the bound man. "Simple. You disappear. Permanently. New identity, new location, new life. The alternative is that all this evidence finds its way to every district attorney in every jurisdiction where you've left victims. You can't prove." "We don't have to." Miguel's smile was razor sharp. "Ever heard of parallel construction? Amazing how creative prosecutors get when they really want to build a case." Benjamin checked his watch again. "Hannah's probably worried. Let me make this simple, Clayton. Door number 1. You vanish tonight. Forever. Never contact Hannah. Never come near our state. Never hurt another woman. We'll even provide relocation assistance. And door number 2? Benjamin's expression went completely blank, the look that had once terrified enemy combatants in Afghan mountains. "There is no door number 2. Clayton stared into those steel-gray eyes and saw his own future reflected back. Not death, but something worse. Complete erasure. Every connection severed, every bridge burned, every hiding place exposed. I have family. Had. Miguel corrected. Past tense. Amazing how quickly people distance themselves when certain facts come to light. 30 minutes later, Clayton sat in the back of an unmarked van, hands still zip-tied, staring at a bus ticket to Nome, Alaska, and a new driver's license with a name he'd never heard before. Coal mining job, Miguel explained cheerfully. Isolated work camp. No internet, minimal contact with the outside world. Perfect for someone who needs a fresh start. This is insane. This is justice, Benjamin corrected. The legal system failed. With a backup system. As the van disappeared into the night, Benjamin walked back toward the warehouse where Hannah waited. She ran to him, and he caught her in his arms, holding her like she was the only thing keeping him anchored to humanity. Is it over? She asked. Benjamin looked at the warehouse, at the shadows where monsters used to hide, at the woman who'd taught him that some things were worth fighting for. It's over, he promised. And this time, he knew it was true. Chapter 7. The Aftermath. 6 months later, Benjamin stood in their new home's kitchen, watching Hannah tend to her garden through the window. They'd moved to a different city, a fresh start funded by the sale of their old house, and a substantial consulting fee from Miguel's security firm. Hannah had returned to counseling work, specializing in domestic abuse recovery. Her clients saw something in her eyes that textbooks couldn't teach, the knowledge that survival was possible, that monsters could be defeated. You're brooding again, she said, entering with fresh herbs. Thinking about him. Benjamin rarely mentioned Clayton anymore, but Hannah knew the shadows that still haunted her husband's expression. Sometimes, making sure we made the right choice. Hannah set down the herbs and faced him. Ben, I need to tell you something I should have said months ago. Benjamin's attention sharpened. I know you didn't do it alone. That night at the warehouse, I heard voices, plural. I know someone else was there. Benjamin remained silent. And I know why you couldn't tell me. Hannah's green eyes were clear, determined. Because some truths are too dangerous. Because protecting me meant protecting the people who helped you protect me. Hannah, I don't need details. I don't want names. She stepped closer, her hand finding his chest. I just need you to know that I understand. And I'm grateful. Benjamin felt something he hadn't experienced since the warehouse. Complete peace. There's something else, Hannah continued. I've been getting calls. Other women. Women who knew Clayton, who've seen the news reports about his disappearance. Benjamin tensed. What kind of calls? Thank you calls. Hannah's smile was soft but fierce. Apparently, word spread through victim support networks. Clayton daily vanishing without a trace has given 23 women their lives back. That evening, Benjamin's phone rang. Miguel's voice was characteristically calm. Package update. Client has adapted well to relocation. Excellent work ethic. Minimal social interaction. No communication attempts with previous contacts. Prognosis. Long-term stability likely. Northern climate seems to agree with him. Amazing how therapeutic manual labor can be for certain personality disorders. Benjamin smiled grimly. Poetic justice. Indeed. Speaking of which, I've had some interesting employment inquiries recently. Seems your domestic situation created quite a reputation in certain circles. Not interested. Didn't think you would be. But if you ever change your mind about helping other families in similar situations. Benjamin glanced toward the garden where Hannah was reading, sunlight turning her auburn hair to gold. I'll keep that in mind. 3 days later, Hannah found him in his home office, staring at a news article on his computer screen. What is it? She asked. Benjamin turned the monitor toward her. The headline read, Missing person case closed. Clayton Daly declared dead after 8-month investigation. Hannah read silently, her expression unreadable. The article described an extensive search, family interviews, and the ultimate conclusion that Clayton had likely died by accident or suicide in the wilderness outside the city. The family is holding a memorial service, Hannah said quietly. Will you go? Hannah considered this. No. Clayton Daly died for me the day I signed the divorce papers. This just makes it official. She closed the browser and turned to face her husband. but I think we should do something to mark the occasion. Such as, Hannah's smile was radiant. I got a call from the women's shelter downtown. They want to start a new program, support groups for abuse survivors, led by survivors. They asked if I'd be interested in heading it up. Benjamin understood immediately. Not just healing, but empowerment. Not just surviving, but thriving. Not just escaping monsters, but making sure other women knew they could escape too. It's perfect, he said. There's one more thing. Hannah pulled an envelope from her pocket. This came in today's mail. No return address. Inside was a single photograph, a coal mining operation in Alaska, workers barely visible in the distance. On the back, someone had written in block letters, "Productive Citizen." Benjamin studied the photo, recognizing Miguel's handiwork. Even in exile, Clayton was being monitored, managed, contained. The system was working exactly as designed. Hannah took the photograph and placed it in the shredder. Some chapters need to stay closed, she said. Benjamin nodded, watching the image disappear into strips. Agreed. That night, as they prepared for bed, Hannah asked one final question. Do you ever regret it? The choices we made. Benjamin thought about legal systems that failed victims, about restraining orders that were just paper barriers, about the 23 women who now slept safely because one predator had finally met someone willing to hunt the hunter. Never, he said, and meant it completely. Outside their bedroom window, the city slept peacefully, unaware that sometimes justice wore tactical gear and spoke in whispered codes. But in their home, two people who'd learned that love sometimes required violence rested easy, knowing that some battles were worth fighting, and some victories were worth the cost. The war was over. They had won. Chapter 8. Full Circle. 1 year after Clayton's disappearance, Hannah stood before a conference room filled with law enforcement officers, social workers, and victim advocates. Her presentation on alternative support networks for domestic violence survivors had drawn an unexpectedly large crowd. The traditional system works for many victims, she explained, clicking to her next slide. But for those facing persistent stalkers who manipulate legal loopholes, we need to think creatively about protection strategies. In the back of the room, Benjamin watched with quiet pride. Hannah had transformed her trauma into purpose, her fear into fierce advocacy. The support group program she'd launched had helped over 60 women in the past year. After the presentation, Detective Clarence Gregory approached Benjamin in the hallway. Impressive work your wife's doing, Gregory said. That program of hers has had remarkable results. Remarkable and unusual. How so? Well, it's curious. Of the 64 women who've participated, 12 were being stalked by former partners who'd previously evaded prosecution. Sophisticated predators who knew how to game the system. Benjamin maintained neutral expression. Past tense. That's the interesting part. 7 of those 12 stalkers have simply vanished. No trace. No forwarding addresses. No contact with former associates. Gregory's eyes were sharp, almost like they were encouraged to relocate. Sounds like those women finally caught a break. Indeed they did. Gregory paused meaningfully. You know, I've been a detective for 23 years. I've learned that sometimes the system works in ways that don't show up in case files. Benjamin said nothing. I've also learned that when dangerous predators suddenly develop an urgent need to relocate to remote mining operations or deep-sea fishing vessels, it's usually best not to ask too many questions. The two men studied each other for a long moment. Hypothetically, Gregory continued, if someone was running an unofficial but effective victim protection program, I might suggest they be extremely careful about client selection and operational security. Hypothetically, Gregory handed Benjamin his card. And if such a person ever needed official consultation on which cases might benefit from alternative solutions, I might be available for coffee conversations. That evening, Benjamin shared the conversation with Hannah over dinner. He knows, she said simply. He suspects. There's a difference. And he approves? Benjamin considered Gregory's coded message. I think he understands that justice isn't always served in courtrooms. Hannah nodded thoughtfully. Miguel called yesterday while you were out. 3 new referrals from the support group. Women whose ex-partners have escalated beyond what restraining orders can handle. Benjamin felt the familiar weight of decision. Since Clayton, he and Miguel had handled 5 similar cases, each one carefully selected, meticulously planned, completely successful. 5 predators relocated to remote locations where they could rebuild their lives far from former victims. 5 women and their children sleeping peacefully for the first time in years. What did you tell him? That I discuss it with my husband. Hannah's green eyes met his steadily. These women, Ben, they're desperate. The system has failed them repeatedly. Benjamin thought about Clayton, now 8 months into his new life as a coal miner in Alaska. Monthly reports from Miguel indicated complete compliance. No contact attempts, no behavioral issues, steady work performance. Rehabilitation through isolation and purposeful labor. How bad are the situations? Hannah pulled out 3 files. Sarah Chun, ex-husband, has violated 6 restraining orders, twice put her in the hospital, recently started threatening their 8-year-old daughter. Police say insufficient evidence for assault charges. The second file, Maria Santos, former boyfriend, is a police officer who's used his position to intimidate her and his colleagues into dropping charges. He's escalated to home invasion and threats against her elderly parents. The third, Amanda Foster, ex-husband, is wealthy, connected, with expensive lawyers who've gotten him out of every charge. He's recently started stalking her teenage daughter from a previous relationship. Benjamin studied the files, seeing Hannah's careful notes, psychological profiles, evidence of systematic failures by traditional protection systems. All 3 cases referred by Detective Gregory, Hannah added quietly. Benjamin looked up sharply. Gregory referred them through unofficial channels. He told each woman about my support group, suggested they might benefit from specialized consultation on security concerns. The pieces fell into place. Gregory wasn't just turning a blind eye. He was actively identifying cases where conventional law enforcement was insufficient. A detective with 23 years of experience, recognizing when the system needed help from outside operators. He's building a network, Benjamin realized. We're building a network, Hannah corrected. The question is whether we want to make it official. That night, Benjamin called Miguel. I need a face-to-face. Secure location. 2 days later, they met at Miguel's private ranch outside the city. The property was off-grid, security-conscious, perfect for conversations that couldn't happen through normal channels. Expansion, Miguel asked after Benjamin outlined the situation. Careful expansion. We're talking about becoming an institution rather than a one-off operation. Miguel poured coffee from a thermal pot, considering. Resources wouldn't be a problem. I've got 12 former operators who could use purposeful work. Network of contacts in relocation services, employment placement, even some creative documentation specialists. Risks? Minimal, if we stick to client selection criteria we've established. Predators with documented patterns, failed prosecutions, clear escalation toward violence. We're not talking about relationship disputes. We're talking about active threats to human safety. Benjamin stared across the ranch's valley, weighing options. Rules of engagement? Same as always. Non-lethal intervention. Relocation over elimination. Rehabilitation when possible. Miguel's expression hardened. But comprehensive deterrence when necessary. And if someone like Clayton resurfaces, tries to come back. Miguel's smile was winter cold. That would be their choice. And their mistake. Benjamin made his decision. Draft operational protocols. I'll handle legal frameworks with Gregory. Hannah can manage client intake and psychological screening. Code name for the operation? Benjamin thought about Hannah standing before that conference room, transforming her trauma into strength. About 23 women who'd learned that monsters could be defeated. About the children who no longer flinched when doors opened unexpectedly. Shadow's call, he said. Miguel nodded approvingly. Shadow's call it is. As Benjamin drove home, he reflected on the path that had brought them here. What began as one man protecting his wife had evolved into something larger, a safety net for those who'd fallen through the cracks of traditional justice. Hannah was waiting in their garden, tending to the roses she'd planted where flowers had once been left as threats. The symbolism wasn't lost on either of them. Decision made? She asked. We're in, Benjamin confirmed. But with conditions. Careful screening, multiple safeguards, complete operational security. Hannah smiled, the expression fierce and beautiful. Those 3 women I showed you, they deserve the same chance we got. The chance to build something beautiful where fear used to live. Benjamin looked at their home, their garden, their life built on the foundation of defeating one monster and learning that sometimes, just sometimes, the good guys could win if they were willing to fight by different rules. Then let's give them that chance, he said. The Shadow's Call was born. Chapter 9, Legacy. 2 years later, Benjamin stood in a different conference room, this one filled with federal agents, district attorneys, and senior law enforcement officials. The presentation screen showed statistics that told an extraordinary story. Over the past 24 months, FBI Assistant Director Emmanuel Hunter reported, we've seen a 78% reduction in repeat domestic violence incidents within your operational area. Cold case stalking files have been resolved at unprecedented rates. Most remarkably, victim recidivism, returning to abusive relationships, has dropped to nearly zero. Hannah sat beside Benjamin, no longer the frightened woman who'd once hidden in closets. She'd become the visible face of their operation, her support groups now funded by state grants and private donations. Her book, Beyond Survival, Building Safety Networks for Domestic Violence Victims, had become required reading for social workers nationwide. The Shadow's Call methodology, she explained to the assembled officials, focuses on comprehensive victim empowerment coupled with innovative deterrent strategies for perpetrators. Benjamin suppressed a smile at the euphemism. Innovative deterrent strategies covered everything from Miguel's relocation program to Detective Gregory's unofficial referral network. 18 months of careful operations had relocated 47 predators to remote locations across North America. Each one carefully monitored, each one completely compliant with their new circumstances. Results speak for themselves, Gregory added from his position as newly promoted captain. Predators who once cycled through the system repeatedly have simply found more productive outlets for their energy. After the meeting, Benjamin walked with Hannah through the city park where Clayton had once demanded meetings. Children played on swings where threats had been made. Families picnicked where fear had once ruled. Sometimes I wonder about him, Hannah said quietly. Clayton, if he's really changed or just contained. Benjamin had wondered the same thing. Miguel's reports showed Clayton maintaining steady employment, no behavioral incidents, no contact attempts. But change and compliance weren't the same thing. Does it matter? Benjamin asked. He can't hurt anyone anymore. That's what counts. Hannah nodded, but her expression remained thoughtful. I got a call yesterday from a woman in Oregon. She said a man matching Clayton's description applied for a job at her company, a logging operation. Background check came back clean, but something about him made her uncomfortable. Benjamin's attention sharpened. What kind of uncomfortable? The way he looked at the female employees. Questions about their schedules, their personal lives. Classic predator behavior. Benjamin pulled out his phone, sending a coded text to Miguel. The response came within minutes. Package relocation to secondary site initiated. Enhanced monitoring protocols activated. Handled, Benjamin told Hannah. What if containment fails? What if someone like Clayton can't be reformed, only managed? Benjamin considered this. Over 24 months of operations, they'd achieved remarkable success rates. But Hannah was right. Some predators were wolves who learned to wear sheep's clothing, not wolves who became sheep. Then we adapt our protocols, he said finally. Tier the threat levels. Some cases require relocation and monitoring. Others might need more permanent solutions. Hannah stopped walking. Are you talking about what I think you're talking about? Benjamin met her eyes steadily. I'm talking about protecting innocent people from monsters who can't be reformed, by whatever means necessary. For a long moment, they stood in silence. Then Hannah nodded slowly. Some problems don't have pretty solutions. No, they don't. That evening, Miguel called with an update. Package has been transferred to Tier 3 containment. Deep isolation, comprehensive monitoring, zero external contact authorized. Prognosis: lifetime management required. Some wolves can't be domesticated, only caged. Benjamin understood. Clayton would spend the rest of his life in remote isolation, every movement monitored, every interaction controlled. Not prison, but something more complete, erasure from the world where innocent people lived and loved and raised children. Confirmed, Benjamin replied. Hannah appeared in his office doorway. That was about Clayton? Among others. How many others? Benjamin checked his encrypted files. Currently managing 16 Tier 3 assets. All high-risk predators who demonstrated inability to comply with standard relocation protocols. Hannah absorbed this information quietly. And you're comfortable with that level of control? Benjamin thought about the 47 families sleeping safely tonight because predators had been removed from their environments. About children who no longer flinched at unexpected noises. About women who'd rebuilt their lives without looking over their shoulders. I'm comfortable with whatever it takes to protect innocent people, he said. Hannah nodded, settling into the chair across from his desk. Then we need to talk about expansion protocols. I've got referrals from 6 other states. Women whose situations mirror what ours was 3 years ago. Miguel's already drafting operational frameworks for regional expansion. And Gregory? He's identified 12 detectives in other jurisdictions who might be amenable to unofficial consultation. Hannah smiled, the expression both gentle and fierce. So we're building something bigger than just helping individual victims. We're building a system that works when the official system fails. A shadow system. A necessary system. 3 hours later, Benjamin stood in their garden, looking at the roses Hannah had planted where fear used to grow. His phone buzzed with updates from around the country. New cases, successful relocations, families made whole again. Hannah joined him among the flowers, slipping her hand into his. Any regrets? She asked, the same question from years ago. Benjamin thought about Clayton, now contained in permanent isolation. About the network they'd built from desperation and determination. About the children who would grow up safe, because sometimes good people were willing to make hard choices. None, he said, and meant it completely. Above them, stars emerged in the darkening sky, distant lights watching over a world where monsters could be defeated, where victims could become victors, where shadows could be called upon to protect the light. The Shadow's call had become more than an operation. It had become a promise. A promise that those who preyed on the innocent would find themselves prey to something darker, more determined, and infinitely more dangerous. Justice wore many faces. Sometimes it wore a badge. Sometimes it wore robes. And sometimes, when the system failed and evil seemed to win, justice wore tactical gear and spoke in whispered codes. In their garden, surrounded by roses that bloomed where fear once lived, Benjamin and Hannah Hahn stood together, guardians of a shadow system that ensured the innocent could sleep safely. The war against monsters was never-ending, but they were winning. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.